All right. We have a treat here on the Productive Conversations podcast. I have the bright young man in every sense of the word, Eric Cerqueira. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing well yourself.
I'm excellent. Thanks for coming on for me. So just in case the listeners don't know, I know Eric for another guy I know from Theta Chi. He was entering the fraternity as I was in my final semester for it. Then he transferred to Fordham University, if I have that correct. I
Correct.
assume you finished your undergrad there.
I did. I graduated with a degree in finance and alternative investments.
Excellent. What have you been up to with that? I know it's brand new for you. Just graduated this spring.
Yeah. Well, it's hard right now in finance. I mean, are you aware? Do you know Bridgewater Associates in Connecticut?
I'm very familiar. Up in Stanford.
Yeah. I did apply for a job there. That was my dream job. I'm not familiar. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Ray Dalio and who he is and his philosophies, but he wrote a book called Principles, and you can consider it a self-help book, but more of a book that teaches you radical open-mindedness and transparency, and to just find the truth in whatever it is that you do. After reading that book, it really stuck with me and who Ray was as a person, and to think that a company had a culture like that. Some people consider it a cult, but in reality, I don't see it as that. I think people just don't want to be told that they're wrong about things here and there. So I applied for that job, got up till a third round interview during this whole thing, and just I wasn't able to have it stick, but I've been trying to apply to different places, just hard. A place like that loses 20 billion in assets under management when they're managing around
Mm-hmm.
160 billion, then they get down to 140. So you can imagine what these banks are losing right now and these real estate firms. So it's hard right now to find a job in that space in regards to what's happening. But markets look good. Things will start opening up. I caught a bad break, but eventually I'll find a place to be. I just need that one place to give me a shot.
I know exactly how you feel, especially with my production background. Graduating college, did find pretty consistent work both in mostly production and a couple audio spaces. And then I had my latest project done in December. And, normally you go a little time unemployment, then you just hop into the next gig until you have enough credit slash
Yeah.
experience to go to a more stable production job, which I just hit that cusp. So I've been a production assistant for a few years. Now I'm ready to be a
Mhm.
production coordinator. And I was
Yeah.
interviewing for production coordinator jobs. And as I mentioned before, right the very week COVID hit, I interviewed for one of the major
Yeah.
late night talk shows in New York City. And I'll never know if
Mhm.
it's because of COVID or someone fairly beat me out. But I was a former intern at the conglomerate. It was for a
Mhm.
Viacom show, and
Mhm.
and being a couple networks there, freelancing or interning, you figured you'd at least have a fighting chance. But talk about
Yeah.
divine intervention. So as you just waiting for more spaces to open, more sets to go back on. I think for me specifically, once Broadway comes back in New York, and that will be a huge milestone because you'll see more of the theater industry opening and also with that other productions. So if that's till May, that's fine, I guess. But I'm just ready as you ready to go in, applying every day, hitting up references, and really doing this in the meantime to continue using the Adobe Creative Cloud, not get rusty on
Yeah.
it, because that's all, and just
Mhm.
continuing writing and just getting ready. But I know for a fact that the both of us will be in a secure position, especially once this all ends. I really
For
believe that.
sure.
And
I believe that.
and I was still getting very far into the process. I really commend you, and I'm sure you've keeping in touch in one way or the other. And once you come back in, they'll be blessed to have Eric Sequeira be amongst their firm.
But it's tough, like the connection part too. You want to reach out to people on LinkedIn. You want to reach out to people through the fraternity. That's what my biggest resource has been, is connecting
Mm-hmm.
through people on LinkedIn through Theta Chi, and people are quick to respond in that regard. But what's also interesting right now is the fact that what if those people don't have those jobs within the next 3, 4 months. I mean, I read a couple Reddit posts the other day about people working in human resources at JP Morgan and not Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs,
Mhm.
saying that yeah, they're going to have layoffs in January, and take it for what it is. It's Reddit. I mean, I could go there, say I'm the CEO, and say, yeah, everything's great. We're not going to have that, but then I go on to talk to my friend a few hours later, and she said that she talked to someone from Morgan Stanley and that they're going to be laying off a good amount of people in January as well. So it's kind of scary to think that the people that you're trying to connect with might not also have their jobs in a few months, or hopefully maybe these things do shape out and they still do get to keep those jobs. Who knows?
Oh yeah, and as much of having the various reference, there really is no, there's really no such thing as having too much. And the thing is with going out and seeing who can help what, and being as many friends you can have. I
Mm,
definitely get your point, and there's just some people trying to help you while also trying to manage their job and just getting that perfect moment. And I guess really the only answer, and it's very cliche and sometimes even annoying, is really just keep hitting that ice, and eventually it's going to break. And just don't have any fear of getting rejected, ignored, or ignored. And well, you just have to really be your biggest fan and knowing that you are good enough to be amongst that place. Like
mm,
for instance, I had an internship and with one higher up, and he told me to stay in touch with him after the internship, especially when you graduate. And of course I
yeah,
did, and he didn't even respond to my emails. And I was like, okay, so this is the world I am about to get into. And it's
yeah,
just trusting people are genuine enough to get in there is when it will fall in. And then you just remember once you're on the other side to be genuine to someone else. So I guess as long as you're not afraid to
yeah,
just keep asking questions and have your own confidence and being the biggest fan, really all
yeah.
it's like a glove eventually.
Uh, are you into philosophy by chance?
Yeah, I'm very much open to philosophies in this
Hmm.
world.
Uh, at Fordham, you have to take 2 philosophy courses. Um, take it as you see fit. Most people don't value those philosophy courses. I mean, they coincide with the religious courses. I mean,
Hmm.
who really wants to take them? They're hard courses. They're not for everyone. But I remember the second one I took, we learned about Immanuel Kant, and one big thing, I feel like philosophers always have one big thing that you remember, and his biggest thing I think that he's known for is do unto others as you would want others to do unto you. So don't
Golden rule.
don't use
Hmm.
people as a means to an end, basically. And there's a lot of that in whatever industry you get into, and I feel like it goes back to I feel as though Ray Dalio is a little bit of a philosopher himself with his ideas and that radical open-mindedness and transparency. I think the issue we find a lot in when looking for jobs is that people rather say before your quarterly review that okay, they didn't do well here or that, but when you come back in, they shoot the shit with you and say, hey, you did great, you might need to work on this and that. But there's no issue with telling that person you did extremely poor here. Why were you doing poor there, and how can we fix that? And I think that has to do with using the people as a means to an end. They feel as though they can use these people for a certain task or for a certain reason or for a certain purpose up until a certain point that they need them, then they can let them go. Instead of being truthful and honest with your employees and saying, this is where you messed up. Why are you thinking this way? This is how I'm thinking of this. And let's collaborate to come to a middle ground and further what we could do together to see better results. I think there's a correlation between those two things, and it starts with people not responding to emails, people
Hmm.
not being of their word. And it's interesting that that culture at Bridgewater hasn't picked up. A meritocracy, I think, is the best thing that someone can be um, around and be a part of. Most people don't like being told that you're wrong, but you got to hear it. You got to hear the truth. You're not always going to be perfect in everything that you do, and I think it really does start with from using someone as a means to an end, and it just escalates there throughout any firm or any business, most business you work in.
Oh yeah, and if you're someone who really believes in what goes around comes around too, and actually being that genuine person at the other side, and definitely not seem like you're using someone else as well.
mm,
You don't want to feel used. And that's why I think we really have to figure out every way in almost the game of trying to find a job
mm,
and remembering what happens and how you got there. You really can't forget those little people who push you through. And
yeah,
even if one day they're like, okay, whether so if you want to take this route or definitely I want to, I figured if in due time I want to develop my own production company, it'd be amazing because simply all the other ones are taking forever to let me in, so I'll just make my own. I still need
mm,
lots of help from investors, from genuine employees who believe in me or my concept, our whole team believing in each other. Even when
yeah,
you are the captain of your own ship, you still need a lot of help. And this
mm,
system and the system of you got to know it's who you know, not what you know. We just have to remember to stay genuine, even not only humble, but as you said, genuine and keeping those little things going. It seems like our common denominator is having those little things to help push us through for our biggest opportunities.
I agree with that, and I think it also comes down to what you look up to and what you admire in life as well. I mean, people like Elon Musk because he's a meme. He says whatever he wants, and people find value in something like that. But I look at it as more. You can look at these leaders, let's say, you can like Elon Musk for being a meme. You can like Obama for being the first African American president. You can like Trump for being Trump. You can like Ray Dalio for being Ray Dalio. But when I look at these things, when I look at Elon Musk, when I look at Ray Dalio, the two people I really admire in this world, I don't look at the way that they speak. I look at the way that they think. And I think that people lose touch of that. They don't really try to understand that person's thought process. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Elon Musk has never worked for anyone other than himself. I believe once he got the money from PayPal, he started
Yeah,
doing his own things. And so
I
people
believe that's
don't
accurate.
realize that. I don't think people realize that Elon Musk never worked for someone on his own. And I don't think people also realize that Tesla was so close at failing. Like they were so
Easily.
close to just losing everything. But it's the fact that you can have someone think so differently. That's why I enjoy these two thinkers, Ray Dalio and Elon Musk, that they're philosophers as well, in my opinion. They just see the world completely different. They believe that they can change it in their own view. I mean, it killed me when I saw Elon Musk speak about or hearing about that. I believe his hero either um, was it? I believe it was Neil Armstrong. That's the guy that went to the moon, correct?
Neil Armstrong was the guy who what he was the first. He first obviously he's the first man on the moon, but I
So
didn't hear that last part. But what did you? He was yeah, Neil Armstrong, first man
I
on the
think I
moon.
think Buzz, either him or Buzz Aldrin, one of them or maybe both of them Elon Musk looked up to, and it was in regards to SpaceX that they didn't believe in him that he could bring people to Mars, and it hurts to see someone like Elon with so much power to see him be a
Mm-hmm.
human being and cry about that. You look up to these people and admire these people, and you enjoy their thoughts, their ideas, the way that they perceive the world, and sometimes it's not what you want to hear, or sometimes they don't even believe in you, but you believe in them when they didn't even know you were a person.
That's the tough thing about meeting your heroes if you want to do it or not.
And that was what was interesting about the possibility of working at Bridgewater. I admire Ray Dalio, but I could also imagine. I believe that he is there as a mentor, and I believe that he does rip into people,
Mm-hmm.
even new analysts. And imagine you have a man of his stature, the billion-dollar man, the man that no one understands how Bridgewater operates better than he does. He's completely revolutionized how markets work. To have this man with so much experience just go into it with an analyst, you kind of think that he's
Mm-hmm.
against you, but there's something unique and special about that. With through that pain, you have one of the greatest minds telling you what you actually needed to do to be successful, and that's what they want. And his probably one of his best quotes is pain plus reflection equals progress.
I could get
And
behind that.
if you can't, if you've seen people that deal with pain, and I'm guilty of it, you just hide behind it or try to cope with it in the wrong way. You don't reflect on it, then you don't make any progress. You're stuck in this loop. And he has this image of a loop that comes around like this, and each step is a stage. So the first section of that loop, you're going to be making progress towards things. That second section, you're going to be comfortable, you're going to be doing what you like, maybe you don't like, but maybe you stay there forever, and you never come into this third section where it comes back down, the failure, learning about yourself. And this is the issue, this is the part where people get stuck, is this second and third loop. They get stuck in the idea that I'm comfortable, or I failed, I can't do it again. So they either get back to step one or stay in step three and be miserable. You need that reflection in step four. You need to understand what's going wrong in your personal life, your work life, because Ray Dalio just doesn't mention work, he mentions life
Hmm.
as well. And if you're stuck in that little loop, you're never going to understand yourself or what issues you're having. And that's not just to say for work and life, but that's every aspect of your life. You need to examine where you're at, and you're trying to get to that fifth and final part of the loop. You're trying to get to your goals and understand where you failed, and you want to continuously go through this loop. You want to make that fifth part of the loop, that rise, start to be number one again. Then you want to get to number two. Then you want to fail again. But that's the issue that people have, is that failure. We've been told not to fail. And that's what I loved about Hartford. And that's what I loved about what I did in
Mm.
high school. In high school, I had a 3.9 GPA. And if you have a learning disability, your case managers need to sign off that you can go into AP classes. My
Yeah.
case manager told me that I couldn't do it. Kids like me don't go to college. And for a 14-year-old, I believe, when I was a freshman in high school. That's a lot. You don't go through
Yeah.
much when you're younger, and that's a
Hmm.
lot to hear. So that sent me on a downward trend. And being able, I ended with a 2.8 in high school, which not the greatest thing, but I'll admit it. So I get to Hartford, I'm miserable because I didn't do what I wanted to. At that moment, when I was thinking I'm miserable and I shouldn't be here, was also the moment that I can't be like this because it's just going to repeat the same pattern. So I worked my ass off. I figured out what I wanted to do, and I still got into a really good school.
Oh yeah.
And you see, that's where I figured out how that loop works and how I could relate it to my life. And that's why I need to be thankful for Hartford to do, giving me that second chance to better myself. It's not that I didn't enjoy being around you guys, being around the school. I love the school probably more than I did Fordham. It was the fact that I knew I could do better and I needed to challenge myself. And that's what I was really thankful for about Hartford.
That's really, really great to hear. And I really commend you on your achievements. And most of all, learning not to take criticism so personally, but using it as your ultimate tool to get on the other step. And seriously, a bravo to you, Eric. And I definitely, I'm sure no
Thank
hard
you.
feelings because, we did leave we have to leave Hartford at the same time. But I think at the end of the day, whether the other
Yeah.
brothers or your friends in the Hartford circle, they understood you want to do what you want to do and you're an actual go-getter and you're not swearing them off for life. You just have to do what's best for you at the end of the day. And you did it. And also, you're in a very unique class to be in the middle of a pandemic and put in this holds, and that's
Hmm.
why I'm sure, and I could see you're not really I'm assuming I could see you're not really nervous of taking, you know taking these obstacles. You're just using it to be a much stronger candidate, and most important, stronger candidate for
If
your
I could,
career and a much person in your life.
if I could go through more obstacles, I would. I mean, you don't want to avoid the pain. You really want to face it. I mean, that's the only way you learn. To be honest, I think people are afraid to learn.
Oh yeah, that's why also, especially for what I do with my industry, that really kicks your ass. I just don't really
Hmm.
get affected or sad from criticism. If I could just share these two stories, one that is extremely similar to
Yeah.
you. Um, you mentioned Ray. I had a big influence. I was a huge
Hmm.
Jimmy Fallon fan. Like everything late night. I
Mm,
watched his first late night show all the way to the Tonight Show, and like insanely obsessed. I went to
mhm,
3 tapings. So it's June 2016. I happened to go to a taping of
mm,
the Tonight Show, and I my plans was to be an NBC page. I would love that as my career out of school. Um,
mhm,
so I try to set. I know it regarding the University at Heart. Actually, let me tell the first story first because it's better to smooth it out. So first story, I really want to go to
yeah.
NYU Film School. I always knew I wanted to be involved in show business and being a filmmaker, literally since I was 5. I can honestly say,
Mm,
since I saw Toy Story and VHS, I want to do something similar, whether
yeah.
television or TV. And I really set up my high school career to be
Mm,
eligible for a film school. I went out for
mm,
NYU and I was just under the GPA requirement, but
mhm,
I took on so many extracurriculars. I obsessively watched your big movie, your the cinephile movies, your Pulp Fictions, or I should
yeah.
get obsessed with Tarantino and
Mm,
Scorsese and Spielberg. I set
mhm,
everything up. So I applied to NYU. I wrote a separate um video essay because the GPA was the only thing that would stop me to get me in NYU, and I wrote it, and I found this NYU counselor, her Tisch School of the Arts, and I applied, and I didn't get it, and I was like, shit. Well, that sucks. And I guess the second closest was Hartford. I didn't want to go to the West Coast at the time. What I
yeah.
would do now, I probably would have just figured out a way to go to school, like the new school. I would have probably been my second choice, but I didn't apply.
Mm,
But anyways, go to Hartford, and I had figured I have to somehow get in the city to redeem this. And long story short, set up everything for Hartford to get ready to apply for these internships. So that's why I became a
mhm,
tour guide, because that's why I joined the radio and TV station and become a better student.
mm,
And my first internship was at Sirius XM Radio, and there was the NYU
mm,
students that I try to be amongst. And then when I had my first
mhm,
TV internship at Nickelodeon, the NYU students are
mm,
my fellow interns, and we wound up in the same place starting our internships from
mhm,
Sirius and Viacom. Even though I didn't go to NYU, I still intern at the very places those NYU students got their internships. And that was very,
mhm,
very humbling,
yeah.
and to know that it's possible, especially at a smaller school like UHart.
Mhm,
And that relates. So I'm getting ready for my internships, and Jimmy Fallon. I really didn't think, how can, if the Tonight Show are taking in NYU students as interns, they're taking in Fordham, they're taking in kids who go to these insane film schools. And I do believe University of Hartford has a great film program. It's just extremely small and doesn't have as much resources or
mhm,
alumni to put those people in, like in NYU or
yeah.
Columbia, University of Maryland, those Syracuse, those big comm schools.
Mm,
And I was like, so I got enough internships to like qualify. Okay, so I have Nickelodeon, Sirius XM. That's where these other NYU students, I'm just gonna shoot my shot, but I know, okay, it might be a little more of an obstacle from UHart to get to the Tonight Show. But I was working at Kohl's, and I got an interview request, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll get the screener. And I glad I got it this far. And then I killed in the screener, and they asked me to go to 30 Rock to do my final interview. So it
mm,
was a hot summer day, and I'm like, wow, this could actually work out. Being so obsessed with the Tonight Show and Jimmy Fallon, I had the internship experience, not only one but two, from two major media companies. Pretty good student, but they really only
mm,
care about your experience.
yeah.
And I go to 30 Rock, and I remember I wasn't nervous at all. I really wasn't. And then I go into that tiny, building built in the 30s, and I got to the production offices of the Tonight Show. I met my interviewer. We interviewed in the writers' room, and we talked
Mm,
for literally a half an hour. And they had this little packet they asked us to fill out, and I wrote every little
mm,
detail for me to explain why I qualify for this.
Mhm.
plus the 30-minute interview, and a really good 30-minute interview. And I actually would
Mhm.
know the name of the writers. That's how like obsessed I was. I would tell him, your writer Mike Shoemaker or Anthony Jeselnik did this, and I thought so. No one knew as much as the Tonight Show
Mhm.
more than me. And a few weeks go by, and I remember after I left the office, where they put the Christmas tree at 30 Rock, I almost passed out. I gave
Mhm.
everything I could give. And I
Mhm.
still, despite it, didn't get it. I've never been more depressed in my life. Next to losing a
Mhm.
family member, that was that hard. I was like, wow, I did everything I possibly could, and I just came up short for whatever reason. And I did
Yeah.
take it really personally for like 12 hours. And then I actually happened to get another internship interview request. I was like, okay, someone else believes in me. And I haven't watched the Tonight Show since. Low key happy to see their ratings
Mhm.
plummeting since they haven't since that time, whether it's because they didn't take me in or
Yeah.
what. And I wound up going to CNN that fall instead. And I really think I got a much more valuable internship. It was production development, which is the dream. I'd love to
Mhm.
be develop shows and networks. And I've gotten a few jobs since because of the CNN internship. And of course, the Tonight Show have been
Yeah.
awesome. But I really have this dream some way in my
Mhm.
life that I will be on the Tonight Show
Mhm.
promoting something. It'd be cool if it was this podcast, and I could say, "Hey, Jimmy, I interviewed for this show back in 2016. Someone said no, but now I'm sitting at your desk." Whenever that day is gonna come, whether the 2030s or 40s, but that
Yeah.
really made me believe. I guess when things happen for a reason, I kept at it. I knew I could get something better, and I did. And I'm very lucky I did. And instead of
Mhm.
being a page, I went to MTV instead to start my TV career, and that was so valuable and fun. And again, and it's never too late to work at NBC. And I'm definitely hoping when that day comes, and especially once my career resumes after this virus, I'm ready to get at it. So as we see, things really do happen for a reason, and we know that failure is a great thing. We just can't take it too personally because we know there's plenty more
Yeah,
times
for
of
sure. I mean, it's it's definitely harder in that moment to go through those things, through something that you really wanted. And I felt like that with Bridgewater, with BC. I felt that a lot of times, but there's always, it seems to be something always pops up the minute after,
Mhm.
and you always just seize that opportunity. It does seem to all work out in the end, even if you don't aim there. I mean, it seems it's though it's very cutthroat in these two industries, and my closest thing
Easily.
to entertainment that I've ever done. Let me just close this real quick. My closest thing to entertainment I ever done was the modeling, and there's
Mhm.
a lot of people that live off that do modeling as a big part of their life. They would consider it as much of a job as anything else, where they're going from 7 in the morning to 7 at night trying to get auditions,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's a very cutthroat thing, and it's understandable why models have so many issues, why so many struggling actors have issues with drug addiction, alcohol addiction, because you just get so many more rejections
Yeah.
than anything else, and that's just the business being the business. I don't think that without going through that prior or having a stable foundation of rejection, you don't quite understand it in the grand scheme of things. You don't understand that it makes you better for the next time. I mean, I love sports. Love him or hate him. I love Tom Brady. I love
Mhm.
Ronaldo. I don't like the I don't like the. Here's a good example: the Peyton Mannings, the
Mhm.
Messis, people that seem to have been born with these gifts. I
Yeah.
like
Right.
the people that have been struggling, that have been compared with everyone else, that were overlooked, that have been doubted, that say they're not as good as the other person. Ronaldo is always compared to Messi, but Messi is something God given. Ronaldo is something that's built, that
Mhm.
literally strives and drives himself off of wanting the next thing to be better and greater than anything else. And that's what you need. I think you need to have two people in business that motivate you and two athletes that motivate you. And that's where Ray Dalio, Elon Musk come in with their thoughts and their drive. But the drive is a little bit different when you take in consideration with sports, like with Ronaldo. But with Tom Brady, the best quote that he's ever said was he was asked what ring was the best ring, and he said the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in pursuit of your greatness. You're never just going to be satisfied. Even if you have six, he could have eight and he'll still never be satisfied. He'll be retired and wishes he could still win more Super Bowls. And that's what I want in my life is that what's my next greatest success? The next one. I want to be compared to others. I want to be doubted because that's what fills a fire. That's what keeps you going and it keeps you motivated to do better and better until you're talked about. But even in those moments, you have to stay humble. When
Oh yeah.
you're on top, you can know you're the baddest man on the planet, baddest woman on the planet, but you have to stay humble because the fact of the matter is it took you years to get there. They talk about people making $2 billion or $20 billion in 20 seconds, but they don't talk about the 20 years it took to get there. But what's even worse about that, the reality is it takes a second to lose everything.
Yes, and that's why we have to hold on and still keep that philosophies in us to not let it go, because yeah, it can change in an instant. And again, that's why really Tom Brady is almost a perfect example. He doesn't have to play anymore, but he really has something to prove. He wants to prove he can win without Bill Belichick. And so far, the Bucks are 4-2, and the Patriots are 2-4 at the time of recording this. And we're going to see how that
Funny how that
unfolds.
works.
And right, he really, I really believe. What's the guy's name at Michigan who started over him? If you don't mind me looking it up.
I remember what he looked like. Well, it was several people. He got there his freshman year. He didn't play. Then he played. Then his senior year, he got benched for the other kid, and I forget his name.
Yeah, I'll have that answer in 3, 2, 1. Almost there. Sorry. So it
No,
was.
that's all good.
His name's notorious. Drew Henson. Drew Henson took his starting position from him, and
Johansson.
It
Because
seems that
he was seen to be like the next Troy Aikman or something. I remember
yeah,
that.
and then I really believe Tom Brady still has that drive that is literally 20 years later. He still wants to prove I'm better than Drew Henson. Some people really need their Drew Henson
Yeah,
motivations, and six Super Bowl wins later and 9 conference championships. He still has that drive, and he's playing until his body can't anymore. And hopefully it is out on his
that's
terms.
impressive in football too.
Oh yeah, especially the way
It's
the
a
game is.
different animal.
And I
I
do.
mean, and then you look at that too, at Ronaldo as well. He's 34, I believe, and has I think what they said he has the physique and um the longevity of a 20-year-old. That's how like perfect his body is.
Now 1% of fat, I'm sure, all muscle. And yeah, he has something to prove. I mean, he really inspires a whole nation of Portugal, and not only that, in this whole world. And I think the one thing to mention when we compare, if you compare a Peyton to a Tom, a Messi to Ronaldo, and don't think we can't take away the incredible accomplishments they pulled off, but
Yeah, of course.
with just very slight, a little more admiration for the people who really had something to prove. Tom Brady, 199. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and
199th pick, that
there's
is, for those
something
who don't know what that means.
everyone wants to be the comeback kid. Everyone wants to be, even if they don't want to admit it. You have your type A's in the world that think that they can do everything and anything. But the reality is we all want a comeback story. No one
Yeah.
likes the person that just has everything. No, the movies would be boring if you had movies like Warrior, which is a great sports film that I encourage anyone to watch. If you have movies like Friday Night Lights, the people that had the most seem to like lose everything in a matter of
That's what's
seconds.
Which is even
and it's
more
just
memorable.
not as admirable. And
Absolutely.
so
And
I wish more people had that mentality.
it would help so many things, so many situations, especially after this emotional year 2020 has. That's the being your biggest fan is the best advice I think anyone can have. And I think that's the ultimate advice that I got out of this quarantine.
Mm.
I really do. And that's why I know once I get to the other side and working again, that this was what I had to do. And, this podcast would not be a thing if I was working and going through pain. And not only I'm growing as a content creator, but I'm reconnecting with people. We're reconnecting through this. Like beyond the microphones,
Yeah.
I'm just glad chopping it up with you and other friends I've
Mm-hmm.
seen and some people I don't really know, but still would love to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a great opportunity that works both
Yeah.
personally and professionally. And I'm sure with what you're doing too, getting prepared for your next gig and on your way up in this finance world, you're growing both personally and professionally out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to think so. I mean, I have some ideas. I don't want to be remembered for money, power, but I want to be remembered for thinking differently. I want to
Yes.
I want to inspire others to think differently. I want to be able to look at complex problems differently from everyone else. And there seems to be an issue with that in the United States. It seems that you're told to go to school, told to do well in high school and do well in college, find a job. And it's, I think, more evident now than ever before. It seems so set in stone. It seems like College Board, the ACT, SAT have a
Mm,
grasp on everyone and they define really who you are. And you know what's the craziest thing? That we're defined by numbers for most of our life.
easily. Very much so.
Everything has a number and we're associated with a number. And that number shows people your self-worth in a way. But if I told you I had a 2.8 in high school and also everything that I just said before, you wouldn't have thought that. You would have thought, okay, this kid probably had a higher GPA. This kid seems like he understands how things work here and there. I'm only 23, but he might make sense of some things in the world. But the reality is they're just such wrong numbers. They don't mean the right thing. And I don't think they ever have. What it means that if you have a high GPA in high school, that you really hit your books hard. If you got a perfect score on the SAT, you did a lot of prep, or you're just
Mm-hmm.
naturally gifted that way. The truth of the matter is, in high school, you might be hot shit, but you're going to, let's say, those kids that got a perfect GPA, that got the perfect SAT scores, you're going to go to those elite schools. There's so many other people like you, not even in
Yeah.
this country, but in every other country. You're not unique and you need to distinguish yourself from that. And I think that's why you see a lot of very smart people not able to make it where they want to be or they thought they were going to be. I feel like there's a big disconnect, and this is not for every smart person in the world, but there's a big disconnect. They see themselves in one place, but then they come to this realization that there's so many other people like them and they can't compete. They can't do the work and they don't want to put in the time. And I think there's that big disconnect what we were talking about. I think there's a lack of competitiveness and it's only in a few types of people. I don't think people want to get their boat rocked. I don't think people want to hear that they're wrong. I think people want to hear that they're right. They don't want to be competitive and they just want everything to be handed. But what would life be if there was no competing for anything?
Yes. And you cannot be afraid to go up against the status quo no matter who is trying to push you through it. There's a lot of people who will try to push you down while you go for these things. There's a lot of people who feel some certain things aren't right. Again, and it all goes back to you need to hear the honesty because then as you said, anyone could just step in and step up like there to slide in. But you need to just know you're good enough. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I can do it. I think that's one of the cool things you could get out of Bridgewater, your Bridgewater
Mm-hmm.
candidacy and my Tonight Show. We are good enough to be considered for all the hundreds of thousand applicants. They really picked us. And for whatever reason,
Mm-hmm.
they pick someone else at the time, but we know we are in that area to be good enough to slide into the next um opportunity. And that's the best part of it. You just have to remember that you are good enough to be considered with that. And there's also plenty of people who, for whatever reason, may have not their good number called, but they are good enough. But they have to know they also have to know personally that they are good enough. And in the time after the opportunity didn't pan out, you really do have to prepare and figure out what I could do differently. Whether it was me thinking, oh, was it me interviewing? Did I want the job too much? Did I push some boundaries for whatever reason? Did I wear the wrong tie? Well, don't get into that, because then you'll go crazy if you go for that something superficial like that. But for the other personal and professional
Yeah.
developments, you do have those extra times. And sometimes it really is just you know, no pun intended, but sometimes it is a time and a matter of time. Like you could be that's one thing to remember. Most of the time, or a good amount of the time, the right candidate, whoever won the job, isn't the right fit or the best fit. And, whether that's on those HR people, the hiring managers who pick that, sometimes it is as simple as judgment decisions. And sometimes sometimes maybe there's a good amount of time they made the wrong judgment. So that's why, I am good enough. Just don't forget that I am good enough. You are good enough, Eric. I'm good enough. And we have a long time. We're extremely young. Like if we think about this. You said Ronaldo's in a 20-year-old body at 34. That would mean 11 years for him to stay for him, 9 years for me. That's such a long time to still be extremely young like that. And we could develop so much more things to get into the spot. So that's why we can't also have a set timer for it. We just need to keep pushing and know that it will come when it's meant to be. So don't let time discourage that too. I think a lot of people get discouraged from timing, especially.
Yeah, I think another thing is too, I forget the Rocky quote, when you get knocked down. I forget which Rocky it's from. I can't
From
really
Rocky
remember all the one.
Balboa. It's not doesn't matter how hard you hit. It matters how hard you get hit, and keep moving forward.
And that's the thing. I think you really need to get hit. You need to get rocked a lot of times in your life. And if you're not getting rocked, you don't get life. You're going to stay in that same situation. It goes back to that loop. You're going to stay in that second and third part, and you're never going to figure it out. Even if you get rocked, even if both of your eyes are black and blue, your eyes are still slightly open. There's a light and there's some hope left over it. I mean, there's so many things in this world that can drag us down. We've been lucky enough to being put in better situations than most. And then you can only imagine what others are feeling right now and what they have been feeling. And hopefully they do still hold on to that sliver of hope that no matter what their situation has been, they could still work their way out of it. It might be tough in the beginning, but it's all part of it. And at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones that really prevail. The world isn't run by A+ students or the people that you thought were smarter than you. It's the people that got the C's, that got the D's, that learned how to fail in school, in life, and made something of themselves. Yeah, you do see successful people on top, but why do you hear more of the times about the dropouts than you do about the kids that are the people that went through all the steps to get where they're at?
Can't be afraid of that. It's your own story. Don't let anyone dictate how it goes or how it should be run. Because then if you really listen to them, you're not making this amazing, inspiring story. You're just going on someone else's. Just literally, you're your biggest fan to make all this possible, and that you are good enough, that you can do it. And I learned that from all the job rejection I've had. I kept a log. I'm at 175 since 2017. Like, not to make a brag or anything. And, people could put that number, you can make that number, assume everyone you want. But I just know I'm good enough for whatever reason. And it's just better stories for podcasts like this. If you get that talk show appearance, that book, it has to happen. You do have to get your ass kicked and sign up for abuse, especially. I think that's why comics are especially very fascinating because they really take. If you want to be a successful comedian, it really does take about 10 years to get some traction, and you have to sign up for so much abuse.
Hmm.
But it turns out, but in the contrary, you got to be a comedian. You got to make people laugh. You got to create content that really helps and inspires people. And you need to go through that hell to make it
Yeah.
go on. And again, don't worry about how long it takes, especially don't
Hmm.
worry about how long it takes. I have seen so many people in my industry who are not deserving of places where I want. For instance, I remember a kid, there's a kid from college who interned at Fox,
Hmm.
who is not a production major whatsoever.
Hmm.
He gets this Fox internship while I'm
Hmm.
trying to just get a PA job, and I'm like, this guy doesn't even he's not doing what I did and put in the work.
Hmm.
You know, Reckon now he doesn't do finance. I don't know what he does now, but I know he's not in that world anymore of production.
Hmm.
And I've been able to been forced to get some opportunities since then. But you do have to, you know what you are. You're a racehorse. When a racehorse runs, there's a reason why their eyes are closed. They just keep running,
Hmm.
not looking on the sides to make them slow down because they literally get slowed down if they turn their head. So
Yeah.
you have to be a racehorse to keep running forward and fuck what everyone else is doing. You just know what you're doing.
Hmm.
And it seems that all these people we admire, whether in the business world,
Hmm.
sports, entertainment, if you're inspired by doctors, I don't know, whoever
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
inspired by, it does seem that common thread that they really believed in themselves. And
Hmm.
there are some other people who get in by lucky breaks and don't know what the hell they're doing. I'm sure we can list many celebrities who done that and then you don't really hear from them anymore.
Yeah.
That's why the ones who really stick and are staying relevant. And that's why we're making it, Eric. At some point before our last breaths, we will get our goals with what we want. Or
There
we're
was
gonna
um there was a performance art. I believe it's talking about back to like people going with their own thing. Someone that I look up to, but not so much like admire, aspire to be, but a different thought. I know a lot of people think Kanye is a loud mouth or whatever,
mm-hmm.
but there's something you have to admire about Kanye. He might be an extremist here and there, but I remember watching. Do you know who the most unruly is on YouTube by chance? He
I
goes
I've
through,
heard of the name, but I
yeah.
don't probably if I saw
Mhm.
him, I'd
He go-
recognize.
he goes through albums and talks about people's processes, what they were going through for each album, and he talks about My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, hands down probably one of the best rap albums ever produced by anyone. It's a very good
Easily.
album. It's all the songs flow, and what he was talking about, Kanye West, I think made everyone dress up in a suit when they were rapping, when they were there in meetings. Kanye West made sure that the album was different but so unique that people still liked it. There's this performance artist that inspires, I believe, that inspires Kanye. I forget her name right now, but she was doing a project once where she just had her body. I believe she was wearing shorts and a shirt, and she had a table, and it had feathers, water, ice, a knife, a razor blade, and a gun that was loaded. People
Really.
could do whatever they wanted. People could write on her. People could throw flowers on her. People could throw baby powder on her. People cut her. People did all these things. And there was one guy that puts the gun to her head right in front of her face and between her eyes. After 3 hours, or I believe it might have been six, all the people that were there stopped. She started moving, and everyone ran. Everyone that did something to her ran away. No one wanted to deal with her. No one wanted to face the reality of what they have done to her and what she did. She showed that when people get that chance, they'll take advantage of you or whatever situation is in their control. But she also showed that with that, people also want to be controlled. People want something that they could all do together. And from that performance, I really think it's shaped Kanye's way of perceiving the world around him. I don't think he wore the Trump hat because he liked Trump himself. I think he wanted to bring unity between
Yeah.
people, and it was just Kanye being Kanye. I think there are also some political things here and there that he may agree with, may disagree with, or that has affected him over the years. But I genuinely think that instead of an African American person hating Trump, that they can like him, at least find an issue. He might not be the greatest person in the world. He might not say the greatest things, but why can't we all come to an issue that we can all agree upon and the way and how the way the world works? Like him or not, he's the president for what has been 4 years. And I think all Kanye wanted to do was just find a connection between people and show that it's not all that bad, that it's not all hate, that might have been fed lies for these months, but it doesn't matter what the candidate is, who the candidate is, or who it is in general. I think that's why I like so much about Kanye West, that he thinks so differently and views the world in such a way that no matter what, we could all still be together and united. I think his name means Ye means we. I forget what language are bringing people together. That's what Kanye means, I believe. But I don't think he's a bad person. I just think he's a person that's definitely had a lot of issues, but that's just trying to find a way that everyone could just unite as one. And it doesn't matter what we look like, where we're from. At the end of the day, we're all human beings. And I think that's the biggest issue Kanye is trying to cover.
I really admire your preaching to the choir on this because I am still a very much a Kanye fan. Even the controversial things he does, I love how Kanye stays original. You know, I have in this studio set up. Back
Hmm.
there, I have a Kanye picture. Kanye's one of my favorite artists of all time, even in this crazy time. Even if he says some stuff that I may not agree with right away, but I can see his attempt to try to bring us together. You know, it's risky for him to do a Christian gospel rap album.
Hmm.
That's a risky thing,
Yeah.
very niche, and he still put songs and tracks that if you, depending on the mood where you're at like a club or bar, you can still bounce to it, and the song's about Jesus.
Yeah.
He does his own thing, and I think that he cares so much about trying to be different.
Hmm.
It really does make people uncomfortable. Different things make people uncomfortable for whatever reason, and he I think he gives a damn. I think he does at the end of the day. And whether you want to accuse his mental illness, you know, they say you should never diagnose somebody you never met.
Mm.
And no matter who it is, when you call out someone with his issues, yes, he has been in the hospital for things, but you can't really jump to conclusions on him and judge him for that because he is giving a damn to try to make something different. And whether you like or admire him, he's made a pretty big impact in our world. And I think he will continue to. And, you know, you should listen to the Joe Rogan podcast with him if you haven't already to
Mm.
really go into goes deep with his mind and just hear the guy out because he's doing something for a genuine purpose. He's not
I,
doing anything for malicious. And even people would say that with Trump, and you know, I know Trump's a very controversial figure, and it's whether you know he has quite the controversial mouth,
mm,
but in his mind, at the end of the day, he really is trying to do the best he can. Now, his approaches might be, you know, examined, but
yeah.
if you look at just Trump as the individual person in the job, take any politics aside, take anything he said aside, take any of his actions aside, if you look at him as the person, he is trying to do the right thing for this
Mm,
country. And I know so many people will say he's not, and some people will say he's this, that, or the other. But in his mind, at least, he's
mm.
trying to do the right thing.
And I think that's what I love, that people can have their opinions. I don't care who people vote for. I love people's opinions and I respect them. People may not agree with that, but there's something nice being able to live in a place where people don't need to agree with that.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, I think what I can find similar within myself and Kanye is that we have this idea that we don't care. We show that we don't care about things or whatever. But the truth of the matter is that we care so deeply that we just don't want to show it. That we care. I care a lot about people, but I hate showing it. I want to be a soldier that never blows his composure. Just
Hmm.
I can march on through even when I hear the worst of things. But at the end of the day, it takes a toll. You're sitting in the shower and just thinking, damn, I actually care and love all these people around me. It just never occurred to me, like, if it's white, black, it just doesn't like, I don't like the separation. I just love people for who they are because we're just people. It doesn't really matter
Yeah,
anything after that. And I've learned how to cope with it better that you can't always just be upset at the world and always try to make everyone love one another, just have a loving atmosphere. People need to express themselves in a way that they find fit, but I think at the end of the day, there still needs to be love that comes out of it. And it doesn't matter where you're from, who you are, what your race is, what your religion is. It's just everyone's beautiful in their own way, and I think that we can
easily.
all love each other. And I mean, even what you said about Trump, I mean, he hasn't said the greatest things with Hispanics, Muslims, and we can all agree on that, with morals and who we are as people. But on that rare occasion, I mean, Van Jones came out the other day. I believe he's a reporter for either CNN or
CNN.
MS,
Yeah, he's
and
CNN
he's
reporter.
he said that he has done a lot for the African American community, and that's big coming from someone that's a
He's
part of
very
that community.
and he was very critical when he got elected too. So
And he was, but that's the thing. Even someone like Van Jones, I don't know much about, you could see that there's still transparency in that, and there's still that little hope and believing in someone as much as that people might have not liked it. Hopefully that there's something that they can find to agree on, and hopefully what happens next, whether it be Joe Biden or Trump, I support. I mean, I voted for myself because why not? Shits and giggles. I have one vote for myself for the U.S. presidency,
so
but
there's someone's gonna read a ballot and they'll see Eric Cerqueira.
basically, one of my friends said they voted for me, so or maybe they vote for me, so maybe I got two. That's pretty big, not gonna lie. So I got some traction going. But whether it be Joe Biden or Trump, don't get me wrong, like the tax thing, I don't like Joe Biden's, but you know what? Fuck it, there has to be something I like about it,
Mhm.
about him. And I can agree with the when it comes to like clean energy, like I can get on board with that. Like
Yeah, I think we
makes
all
sense
could
to me.
agree for the sake of our planet Earth that we need something
And and
improving that.
and that's the thing. I could find a little love for each candidate and for whoever wins. I mean, it might not be the greatest two-party system, but we could still, I believe, all of us can find something we like about that candidate and come to all love each other and accept our opinions and what we think is true. But right now, I think it just needs a little bit more work with everyone.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And however the election's going to sway, I know who I'm going to vote for.
Mm,
I know what I'm going to do with that. Regardless of the outcome, I'm not going to be depressed and sad and riot.
yeah.
I personally think there could be a nice change that should come with my
Mm,
vote, and hopefully will lead to a big change in America. And
mm,
even if that's not the case, I'm still gonna be fine. I still need to
mm,
find my way in this world as my career,
yeah.
but like I said, I can trust at the end of the day, based on the individual, that they are doing what they truly believe is best for the majority. And
I
whether
agree.
that's Trump, whether that's Biden, whether that's Eric Cerqueira, who's now on the ballot, or Kanye, or Green and Libertarian Party, whoever gets in, I will truly trust that that individual, politics aside, their aides aside, that they are doing what they believe is the right thing. And even if I disagree with it, and even if there's points I extremely disagree with it, it's cool to be in a place where we can try to get that change. We just got to remember to vote at the end of the day.
The only thing I hate that's what's happening with Joe Biden is the fact that you can tell that there's something not right with him. I don't know if it's dementia, Alzheimer's, I'm not sure. He looks like Ronald Reagan in his second term, though, and it's kind of scary that no one seems to be helping. It's kind of scary that no one has pulled him out. It's kind of scary that if he wins, that there's a possibility that his health deteriorates way faster. Everyone gets stressed when you're the president. I mean,
Oh
that
yeah.
Obama picture, he has gray hair now. He
Was
looks
it the
so
one
he
with
has
the
gray hair and he's all
Mhm,
wrinkled up now. It's like it takes a toll on you. And it's scary that there's a lack of care for his health. And that's
mhm,
what bothers me. I get that it's a tricky situation to be in, but even before he ran, this was an issue. And that's what kind of
mhm.
hurts me that people still pushed him to do this.
I guess the only thing to think if Biden gets elected, that he really gets the greatest medicine in the world that none of us will ever get touch as the average citizen. And if that is what's meant to be, I guess we just got to trust that there are going to be some extreme care taken care of if Biden becomes the president elect.
This is true. I mean, no one wants to see a president die. Yeah, Trump had COVID. There might have been people that are like, "Oh, I hope he dies," but no one
Yeah,
wants to see a president die because it's
that's
a
really
human being.
bad. Exactly. That's somebody with a family. That's somebody with beyond. No one gives a crap of what happens. They care about the individual. We know the last time that happened back in the early 60s that it really crippled the nation for even no matter who it was, and that so many people witnessed that violent act. At the end of the day, we do should care about that person and what they do, and I'm glad Trump survived COVID, and I'm
Mm,
glad that his other aides. We don't want to see any more people, and we can debate how COVID's been handled by his administration for days, but at the end
yeah.
of the day, it's freaking here, and we have to beat it.
Hmm.
We have to trust our scientists, and we have to scientists in the health industry to beat this. And I personally think we can, and obviously, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
We gotta trust. We gotta trust, and when the election's over, it's it's sure going to be a relieving time for either side. It's ready.
Honestly, I mean, what also makes me happy with whoever wins is that we get so much crap from other countries about not having anything together, not being like the greatest country. But what happens when shit goes down in another country? Who's the first person that it's us. It's always us.
Right?
And I'm glad I could live in a place where people are free to say what they want, protest as much as they want, practice whatever religion they want, and also to be first in line when anything is ever needed. And that doesn't matter what kind of leadership we're under, we're always going to get that call. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Europe. I think it's a beautiful place, but I don't think they really have their stuff together as much as
Mm.
they say they do. For a Western world, they seem kind of old fashioned about things. And I'm not going to lie, when you go to soccer matches in Europe, they're very racist about things. It's
Yeah.
just a very prominent thing. And people don't know that. People think Europe's a very progressive place when in reality, there's a lot of people that are racist, and you could tell by their emotions in soccer matches. It's a strange thing. You won't see it on the streets. People won't say anything, but when you go to some place with just so much emotion, it just all pours out, and it's crazy to think. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think you should be open-minded. You should see as many places in the world that you can. Personally, I went to Amsterdam. I loved it. I want to live there. I love the people. I love just the way of life. But I know that's another country that doesn't have it together. I know that the Netherlands doesn't have it all there, and that's fine. No country does. No country will ever figure out healthcare. No country will ever figure out taxes properly. No country will ever figure out a lot of social.
Environment and,
It just,
as
it
you
just,
mentioned, social.
it's just so hard. There's never going to be an answer for an exact thing. I mean, how long have we been around for with healthcare, and how many great minds we've had in healthcare? How come no one's figured out the perfect system?
Right?
I mean, you pay top dollar in the United States because you get the top doctors. You get people that come out of these amazing schools that know what they're doing, and it doesn't matter what school still, because if you get your doctorate degree, you get your doctorate degree,
Yeah. Right.
regardless if you're going to like the islands for a doctor's. That's a little like anyone can get those. So it's like, but it's whatever. It's still you're still a doctor, but you also have to remember the fact that there's people that are depressed, that are killing themselves, going through these programs for the better or the well-being of others. and they need to get paid for that somehow. There needs to be a compensation. There's a lot of great doctors. Yes, there's some that botch surgeries or botch operations, or botch diagnosis is. But the issue is that they go through so much that they
Yeah.
need to make up for the debts. They need to make up for their mental health, because I'm pretty sure it's about 30 something percent of male doctors commit suicide after 2 years, and like our female doctors 30%, males it's like 50 to 60% commit suicide the after 2 years out of being out of school, because it never gets easier. And I
Yeah.
wanted to be a neurosurgeon. That was the first thing I wanted to do. And I remember before I went to Harvard
Pretty
for reading up
admirable.
on reading up
Hmm.
on it. If you become, I want to work on tumors or either neurospinal surgeries.
Hmm.
So things that make you a lot of money if you're really good at it, and things that I felt like I could do really well and I had a passion for, that I could get better each and every time, that I have great bedside manner. But the thing that never gets easier, and why doctors are so depressed in the United States and globally, no matter who you get on that table, especially as a neurosurgeon, just know most of the time their chances of survival for a major surgery, I believe, aren't more than 30%.
Yeah.
And you have to know that before going in. There's still a chance. I believe that you can get that chance with that 30%. But what never gets easier is telling that family
Hmm.
that someone's gone. A doctor may look like they don't care, but they take it. They feel as though they could have saved someone and they didn't. That they feel the oath that they took doesn't mean anything. They killed that person. So these doctors are paying for therapists. They're paying for their own trauma. There's a reason why it's so expensive, and I get that. Don't get me wrong. I think insurance companies take an arm and a leg for
Hmm.
the price you need to pay for policies, but that's not the doctor's fault. The doctor's just trying to do their job and also pay for what they need to get out of the way and what they need help fixing as well, because they're human beings as well.
That's the human part again. There's a human at the end of the day trying to do it. Whether you're, you know, spinal neurosurgery, if that goes wrong, you don't want to take someone's ability to walk. You don't want to take somebody's ability to really complicate things and the nervous wreck on all of the sides. So, like that's why we have to commend our health officials and what they do for that, because they're putting a lot on the line. And yeah, there's an insane great payday for it, but there's a lot of toll personally that really is priceless when it comes to certain things like that.
Mm.
So it's real, man, real. So I got nothing but love and appreciation for all those. And we just got to remember, no matter you're a doctor or you're an athlete or you're doing something small at a smaller company, everyone is a human at the end of the day, that we have to
Yeah.
give value to them and remember that they have value, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I think it's been getting lost in translation the last few months, but I think when this all blows over after the election, give it 6 months, we'll
Yes,
get
a good
get
6 month
back on our
look at.
feet. We'll be back on our feet. Even if it's during the pandemic, I think people will realize what's happened. Just get back to what we once were, and we
Yeah,
could do it
we have our lessons learned and we keep pushing forward for the next time, man. Strong lessons were learned from this pandemic, and hopefully we genuinely appreciate, at least a few of us can genuinely appreciate the times we have left.
for sure.
Yeah, man. So, man, we've been actually at it for almost an hour and a half. So,
Yeah.
been great and deep. I've just want a few more things before we wrap it up. Let
Hmm.
me ask you, Eric, you mentioned the modeling. You mind
Yeah.
me going in for that? If you like, so were you trying to be, I don't know, the male Candace Crawford? Were you trying to see with acting, or is this something you were exploring?
It was. It's funny because I was at Six Flags when this all started, and it's a weird place to say, but there was this one of those fake agencies that has the photo room in the back of their offices called Interface, that had a booth set up at a Six Flags, and me and my friends signed up for it. And I got a call back from them. They're like, "Hey, we want to develop you. Come in, and we'll get a general thing. You pay us, then we'll take your picture kind of a
Oh,
scam when you look at it.
you
But
can't pay so. Oh,
and then for whatever reason, I got jobs out of it, so my investment was paying off. And I get a call from an actual agency, how they develop you if they want to. You don't
yeah,
give the money to them. They take the check, they give it to the photographer, and that's it. But the photographers charge a lot of money.
of course.
And that's how they actually develop you. There's nothing in the back room. All they have is like 5 or 6 desks, a meeting room, and that's it. That's what a modeling agency really looks like for most people. I've walked
Yeah,
into Wilmanea and I've walked into Ford models. They're a little bit more developed. They have the nice front logos, the Ford in the back or Wilmanea in the back. And forgive me if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. I don't know if it's Wilmanea or Wilmanea, but it's the same setup. They got their front desk. They got a couple rooms right here, offices, a meeting room, and that's it. You're never going to find those
hmm
cameras in the back. But so I get a call from Clary Models, and they say they want to develop me, and it was just something that really, and it's a lot of things in my life I just get into, and I just got lucky with the things I did
yeah.
for Ray-Ban, Express, Polo, Louis Vuitton,
Really?
Suzuki.
You done actual shoots for all those clients? That's incredible.
I've done shoots, I've done auditions for them. I can tell you that I've done way more auditions than I have shoots just because that's
hmm
just the nature of the beast and I'm
Oh
fine with
yeah,
that.
I've worked at 2 casting agencies. I know exactly what you
Mhm.
mean, and it's
And
amazing when I see. Oh, I'm sorry. You could go.
I don't feel like I'm not the best looking one or not the most charismatic person. It's just they're looking for something, and if you don't fit it, it just makes, in my opinion, it
Yeah.
just makes so much sense if you don't get it. You just weren't. It's not based off resume. It's not based off any past experience. Maybe if you have a name and you're going in there, okay, they want you a little bit more. But the truth of the matter is, it's just so nitpicky what they need, and I
hmm
get it. I completely understand it because it was the same way when I went to Thailand for that commercial. They needed a kid that looked like me, that was the size of me, that was had the hair like me, that could look like the other family members. Like there was just so much that went into it that they needed for that one thing. And
So,
but granted, I did know the person on the other side of that casting chair because
mhm.
we used to do runway shows together. So
How about that?
that might have, yeah, I mean, that might have helped me. I forget her name, but she really helped me out.
Yeah, they really want you. They want Eric Cerqueira.
Yeah.
That's what they want. No matter where they're putting, where they're what project you're
Hmm.
on the runway, doing the shoot. They want you and how you fit to
Yeah.
whatever situation is when what they're filming. And yeah, I hear that, and I'm sure you've made those places proud. So, is there could be a day or a commercial or a billboard or picture, and then there's you and whatever you're promoting.
I thought about getting back into it to Ford Models or Wimonea. Just right now, I just need someone to take a couple pictures of me, and that's about it. I just hasn't been a top priority because I want a real job, but it could be a
Of course.
moneymaker on the side, for sure. I think that not to be conceited or arrogant, that I have the look that they're looking for, and
Yeah.
I'm not the type of person that's going to be up my agent's ass about getting jobs. Like I'll get what comes to me, and if I find something, I'll go out for it. I mean, I don't think most people know too. Like if you want to be an extra model for something, backstage has those things. Yeah, you might need to pay, but what you're
Oh,
paying
backstage. I love
for like
backstage.
what you're paying, and if you let's say you just want to be an extra, what you put into that, you'll make your money back, whether it be like $200 or $100 back off of what you were paying for that 12-month period. You're going to make your money back because they'll take most people for extras. They're not going to deny you when they need it.
Oh yeah, and you just get whether depending if you want to be an actor, you need to get your credits for to join certain
For sure.
unions
For sure.
and you just need to put yourself out there to find representation because representation is the hugest step somebody needs to
Mhm.
get work. And that's why those little things and backstage is important as somebody who recruited models and actors for various projects. Backstage is important,
Mhm.
and I just put out my poll out there what I was looking for, and bam, it's worth doing the backstage for anyone who wants to take that route.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
you have my support if you come back, as you know, it's never too late for that. So
for sure. They're always looking for older people too. I mean, It really doesn't stop at any age, but in regards to like the acting, I never would give up anything for acting, but I've always would like have been interested or am open to an opportunity if there's ever a role because I know I could get really into myself and emotions. I could really absorb myself into a character, but
I
more like a
love
Jake
hearing that.
Gyllenhaal type role where it's more independent, where it's that eerie type of person, whether it be
Very
Prisoners or
nuanced.
be Nightcrawler. Like I feel really connected to those type of End of Watch. Like I feel connected
Mhm.
where I could just absorb that character. I don't want to. If I was an actor, I wouldn't want to be the actor that's making 20 million. I want to be the actor that's making 1 million off of an independent film that like catches everyone off by surprise. Something that's low budget but just so fucking good that you just need to see it.
All acting is memorizing lines and putting emotion to your character in those lines.
Hmm.
And once you do that, possibilities are endless. And as long as you're not afraid to get rejected, you really can make a name for yourself. You know who someone you just explained that someone going to the independent world to really grow as an actor and get into different characters is Robert Pattinson.
Hmm.
If you've seen the Robert Pattinson renaissance we've seen this past decade, he is genuinely my favorite actor in the world. And he goes from Twilight, the biggest name in the world, and he's like, and he wasn't happy, and he really reinvented himself, and especially in Hollywood, doing these independent roles, whether The Lighthouse, Good Time, the one he did with Tom Holland, The Devil,
Mm.
just starts with Devil, and
Hmm.
he's really expanded as an actor. I think he's the very best at accents. He could kill every accent I've heard.
Yeah.
He generally believe him. You just like, this isn't Robert Pattinson. There, it's this guy. It's that, and
Mm.
I think that's I would really respect for what you're saying to go
Yeah.
into that not non-mainstream world because you want to be better as an actor and get that craft, and that's why I really admire stage actors who do that as well.
Yeah. I think that it's still kind of the same role with Batman that he's playing. This
Yeah,
Batman seems to be way darker than anyone. I mean, they're all dark movies, but don't get me wrong. Christopher Nolan made such a realistic superhero that
yeah.
you could think that that's a real person. That's how well those movies were done. But this one seems a little bit more like an independent film where it's way darker and it's closer to what Robert Patterson has been doing, and that's what like I said, I admire about Jake Gyllenhaal. I don't like when he's in big movies, to be honest. I
Yeah,
like when
and
he's
he
in those
did,
small
like you said, he
movies.
did a similar route from going from big street, but he really changed. Like Nightcrawler, very low budget movie.
Mm,
Prisoners, they had Dennis Villeneuve. Now he's become a huge star. But
yeah.
again, these like really getting the craft of acting and growing in that sense.
Yeah, and you could see when in Prisoners too how well he portrayed that character, and you could just feel when he can't find those kids how pissed off he gets more and more and more, and it's just such subtle things within the movie that he does so well, and that's what I love about him as an actor, and I mean that's hands down probably my favorite actor.
And that's what great acting is when you don't notice they're acting.
Hmm.
You just blend in. This is not like there's so many dumb movies I'd say like I see an actor and you're like, oh, that's just John Smith playing a welder. I'm not
Yeah,
lost into it, but damn. And let me ask one more question before we wrap it up.
of
When was
course.
the last time you laughed really hard, or a time recently you laughed really hard, Eric?
Probably anytime I'm on Discord with my friends. And we're
Discord.
just yeah, we're just talking. Probably playing like Phasmophobia. Have you played that game yet?
Phasmophobia. I've
Yeah.
not. Quite
You
a
know,
name.
you know, you know, was it Ghost Hunters?
Yeah.
It's basically like Ghost Hunters, but you're the ghost hunters and you go inside and you try looking for demons, Anis, spirits, but it's just so much fun because you have your headsets on and it's a VR game too, but you
Hmm.
see things like get thrown around or like it spooks you or like you see the thing pop up out of nowhere. It's just so much fun. And all the crap that you say with your friends and you're trying to piss off the ghost so you can see it more. Probably like anytime I play that game with them, I probably laugh really hard.
Great. I love that. It's always good to laugh. So what have we learned today? We learned some great philosophies, the importance of not giving up, the importance of failure, the and a lot of really insightful things. And I commend you. You're a very bright young man, as I said at the beginning of this,
Thank
and
you.
even more accurate after. this conversation. And is there anything else you have to say or want to end off with?
No, I think I'm good, but I thank you for having me on. Hopefully, I could be back on another time.
Oh, I hope you want to come back. I definitely would love to have you on, man. This was great, really insightful, and nothing but a great time, Eric. I'm glad we got to chop it up.
For
I
sure.
can't wait to do this again. And once this pandemic once some things rolling on, it'd be great to see you. You're still you in Jersey? You
I'm in
still
Jersey for right now, but I'm going to be moving to Jersey City, I believe, sometime
all
soon.
right.
So I'm there. We used to live in the city, my girlfriend and I, and then we moved out because of this whole thing.
Hmm.
But hopefully, we can hit up a really nice restaurant somewhere in New York City or in NYC.
Oh man, I would love to come to you with Jersey City too. I've been there, your Journal Square. I've spent some
Yeah,
time over there, so
yeah, yeah,
definitely I will be seeing you very, very soon, one way or the other.
for sure.
But thanks again, Eric. You the man, and I'll see you very soon.
Yeah, for sure, my guy. Thank you again.
No problem. Bye.
Bye.